Probably the biggest test to see if a person actually has common sense when it comes to football is their opinion on Bukayo Saka. Saka's been one of the most overly scrutinized players in football for a few years now. I feel like it really started to get bad after the missed penalty at the Euros. It's crazy because in literally any other circumstance, Saka would be widely respected in the eyes of football fans. A kid that started out as a teenage defender and then moved to the right wing and completely transformed a team that was straight ass. I'm talking about bare dookie. You could use the 2020 Arsenal clips as an interrogation torture method and the suspect would confess in minutes. It's genuinely horrific to watch. Saka was literally the only ray of hope. A kid that's barely in his 20s and he already has a season with 25 goal contributions. Yet he's arguably the most disrespected young superstar in England right now. Even more than usual when it comes to rival fans. So what exactly are the reasons for this? Well, other than the penalty miss, people have criticized Saka in numerous other ways. One of the popular attacks on Saka is the quote-unquote no-tech allegations. This, of course, comes from the dribbling cult. Some football fans have an unnatural obsession with useless aesthetics, and it's hilarious. Because if Saka was a winger with 2 goals and 3 assists on the season, but he had 8 useless dribbles per game and Arsenal was in 5th place, he'd be way more respected than he is now, which is crazy. It's wild that directly contributing to the team that's been first or around first in the Prem all season while having over 20 goal contributions in less than 30 games is somehow not good enough because he isn't attempting enough rainbow flicks that get cleared into the nosebleeds for throw-ins. A lot of people say that the winger position is dying because players are being turned into stiff robots, and I can acknowledge that there are definitely less outrageous dribble merchants that entertain us nowadays. However, that doesn't make current wingers like Saka that aren't technically insane bad players. Stuff like IQ in the final third, passing accuracy, goal scoring ability, pressing and defensive work, apparently none of that matters because he doesn't do an unnecessary elastico before getting tackled outside the box. I'm telling you, aesthetic merchants are ruining the way the sport is viewed. We watch football with our eyes used to be a genuine statement that criticizes people who judge players like midfielders based on their goal contributions or people who refuse to acknowledge that a player had a good performance just because they didn't score or assist. Now people just say whenever they want to shit on a rival attacker who's not an elite dribbler. Mind you, a lot of the time, the players are still elite dribblers, just not in the specific way that those type of football fans want them to be. Mo Salah is constantly called a terrible player by the gremlins over on other platforms, specifically because he's not an aesthetic player. He could do the same exact move as the best dribblers in the world, but because it's stiff and awkward looking, he apparently can't dribble. Salah is efficient, and in the grand scheme of things, that's all that matters. If I was a Liverpool fan, I don't give a fuck if he moves like a stop-motion character. He's cooking people and putting the ball in the net. I swear you could take the shittiest player on the planet and give him like 2 nasty dribble moves and those guys will call him the next coming of Messi. It doesn't matter that he doesn't actually do anything. No, this isn't Jeremy Doku slander. Alright, fine, it is. Look, I don't think he's bad, but pretending he's anywhere near one of the best wingers in the league because he spams that little body feint move on grandpa fullbacks is crazy. There's 2 extreme sides of the spectrum, and both of them are annoying. You have the stat obsessors who don't give a shit about anything if it isn't goals or assists. Then you have the eye test obsessors who ironically don't even really have a good eye for anything because all they're looking at is dribbling. A winger's job is not just dribbling. Those Neymar Ronaldinho comps are classics, and I love them just about as much as anybody else, but man, the damage they've done to the general perspective of wingers is crazy. When you look at the traits of an elite winger, Saka has almost all of that. Acting like a winger is bad because he doesn't do enough tricks for you like a court jester is wild to me. Saka also gets treated extremely unfairly in comparison to other wingers too. Other wingers are allowed to go missing for months with no issue. Rodrigo, Leao, Cavara, they can be gone forever, but the moment they have one good game, Saka's name is brought up. It's weird. Meanwhile, Saka could go 2 straight months with an insane run of form and it'll be crickets. Let's really take a look at it because it's weird and it's a combination of both the Premier League microscope, the Arsenal hate microscope, and the Bukayo Saka microscope. Take a look at a player like Rafael Leao. He went 3 months without scoring earlier this season in arguably the weakest defensive league in the top 5 besides Ligue 1. He still put up more than a few good performances, but he did have a few stinkers too. You didn't really see people claiming he wasn't one of the elite wingers in the world anymore though. Same goes for Rodrigo. After the Super Cup final against Barca, he was subpar for a while. Even now, he hasn't really picked it up consistently, even though he did have a crazy performance from the left against Athletic. Yet, nobody would dare to suggest he's not an elite winger anymore, no matter how long he goes with questionable play. You can point at the Premier League microscope to blame for that though. The Premier League microscope obviously meaning that since it's the biggest league in the world, players are more scrutinized. But even within the Premier League, other players are given more leeway than Saka. Saka has consistently outperformed Phil Foden in the past few seasons despite being younger on a considerably worse team. Don't get me wrong, there's other context that matters like minutes and Foden often playing out of his best position, but the point is that when the two of them are criticized, Saka isn't treated anywhere near as fairly. This year, Foden is having his first season season ever where he's actually outperformed Saka from a majority of metrics. I can admit that, especially considering the fact that Saka wasn't playing that well overall at the beginning of the season despite still putting up numbers. Recently though, as in since the calendar year started, Saka has generally been unreal. 9 goal contributions in 9 league games in 2024, insane performances against West Ham and Burnley, and great performances against Liverpool, Palace, Forest, and Newcastle. Yet the moment he slips up and has one bad game against City in a matchup where he didn't even get the ball much and was evidently playing through injury, all of a sudden he's trash, overrated, shit player, fakes injuries when he plays bad, and blah, blah, blah. Saka's only genuinely shitty performances this calendar year are against Porto, City, and Liverpool in the FA Cup. He's been excellent or better in every other game, and aside from Odegaard, is the driving force behind Arsenal's recent league unbeaten streak since January. Meanwhile, in the last 2 months alone, Foden has disappeared against Chelsea, Liverpool, and Arsenal, and on top of that, got suffocated against Brazil for England. But a hat-trick against Villa, and he's getting best player in the world praise? Are we being serious? Yes, players have off games, we all acknowledge this, but if we can acknowledge it for Foden, why don't we extend Saka the same courtesy? Consistency matters until it's Saka, who had 18 goal contributions a couple seasons ago, 25 last season, and has 22 right now with 8 games to go while leading the top team as a 22-year-old in back-to-back title races. Fatigue matters until it's Saka, who must be faking an injury when he's limping, even though he's played every single game each of the last 2 seasons and he's only missed 2 this year. Nope. No common sense about how an extremely fouled winger's body could be breaking down. Just blind, hive-mind hatred. It's very, very confusing. Output matters until it's Saka. Defensive work rate matters until it's Saka. Crossing matters until it's Saka. IQ matters until it's Saka. Tribalism has always been a thing in football, obviously, but even back then, there was less delusion and agendas and more mutual respect. Social media has done a number on the way football is talked about. It's kind of why Twitter is the worst app to talk about football on, unless you want to laugh, because I'm not going to lie, they do be funny sometimes. But going over there for a genuine football conversation is hilarious, because all you're going to find is Arsenal have 0 UCLs. Well, Liverpool have 1 Premier League title in 30 years. Well, City have 115 charges. Well, Chelsea are in 12th place. Well, Spurs have no trophies since cavemen walked the earth. Well, United have discount Walter White guiding their club into literal hell, which is true, by the way. Ten Hag is fucking atrocious. But seriously, though, when it comes to Saka, I've almost never seen, across any sport, a situation where a 22-year-old player could be that consistent, that good, and still be that disrespected. There's probably somebody I'm forgetting, but there's times I read articles or think pieces about Saka and just think, what the fuck am I reading? There's no type of consistent criticism, just shifting goalposts trying to find new ways to attack him, and it's kind of ridiculous. You know that's the case because literally every time a winger has a sniff of success, he's immediately compared to Saka. There's an entire army of young attackers that have come and gone while Saka has continued to just get better and better. I don't get why people try to act like consistently being an elite young player in the Premier League for 3 straight seasons isn't crazy. Let's take a look at all the youngsters who have been called better than Saka in the last half decade and ended up not even approaching both his level of play and his consistency. Callum Hudson-Odoi, he's fallen off a cliff. Sancho went to United and fell off a cliff. João Felix couldn't string together 5 straight good performances if you possessed him with the spirit of prime Ronaldo. Ansu Fati, injuries dragged him off a cliff. Harvey Elliott still hasn't approached the heights anybody expected by this point. Anthony Martial, washed before 30. Mason Greenwood.
Hey, you know they got your mans. They got your mans on sex assault charges.
Kulusevski. Yeah, all right. The list is literally endless because every single new attacker gets compared to Saka. Currently, the new anti-Saka favorite is Cole Palmer, who's actually very good. I'll never lie about a rival player's talent. The problem is the fact that if anybody tried to say that Saka was better than an established superstar back in 2022, they'd get consistency arguments. Where are those arguments now? Oh, I forgot. It doesn't matter how many seasons they do it for because it's not Saka. I'm just asking for a little bit of consistency. Back when Saka was outscoring Foden and Palmer and putting up better numbers, they pointed at creative stats to try to say that they're better. Now that he dwarfs them when it comes to creative stats and they finally managed to pass him in goal contributions, they flipped the script and started using that to make their arguments. Mind you, Palmer has 8 penalties in the league alone. Of course, that isn't going to get brought up when the stat merchants pop up, though. It only gets brought up against Foden because Saka has more. It's tiring because everybody knows they're being disingenuous, from the trolls on social media all the way up to the actual pundits. Sometimes they just straight up lie to create false narratives. There was this one clip where Anton Ferdinand tried to say that Saka wasn't doing what Mainu was doing at 18 because he was inconsistent. Hold on, actually let me find it.
People talk about Saka. Saka weren't doing this.
He wasn't in the England squad like that. He was not.
But he was inconsistent.
How old he is now?
But he was
Saka's got to be
inconsistent.
22.
What? Bro, What the fuck are you talking about, man? These people just be chatting, bro, talking bare bullshit. Do I think Saka is the best right winger in the world? Nah, not really, to be honest. It's definitely still Salah. Do I think he's better than Foden? Way more debatable. If you asked me before the season, I would have said Saka without a doubt, but Foden has been one of the best players in the world this season. While, like I said earlier, Saka had quite a few bad performances early on, even though he was putting up numbers, and he didn't pick it up fully till the calendar year turned. If we're basing it off this season alone, then I'd give it to Foden from a completely unbiased perspective. I'm not gonna lie and pretend Saka has been the most consistent this year. The entire debate in the community is constantly shifted to favor anyone but Saka though, and it's very obvious.